I think that in order to learn most efficiently from teachers, you have to be able to see and realize like how silly and how imperfect they really are and appreciate them for it. Because everything that you see in somebody else is just what you're seeing in you. So when we see something that we really, really appreciate and really admire, that's us. That's our own appreciation. That's our own inspiration. That's our own light. The light within me recognizes the light within you. And the same for noticing something negative about someone. Well, the reason that realizing that teachers are silly in a way is the same reason realizing that yourself is very silly. And yet, all of those other things you might notice as well, it's all of them. I thought about the concept of rarity um, and how like we believe that diamonds are rare, and then there's this whole thing you can go into about, well, diamonds naturally occur, they aren't actually rare in some parts of the earth, you'll just find them in the dirt anywhere, but we've created this idea that they're rare. Well, the very idea of rarity is totally self-created. So, well, we're trying to be somebody who's rare, somebody who's unique. At the same time, we are actually creating that whole concept of common or rare and not realizing how we're creating it. So, another ironic thing is that nobody wants to be average. Everybody wants to be unique or exceptional in some way. And yet everybody's striving to be normal. And they mean the same thing. You just, with thought and identification, you're just never, ever going to win. Which is why, like, seeing the hilarity in it is really an amazing thing. I was blessed to be raised by a father who just like modeled that for me. Like, he would do something stupid and would tell the story and just laugh about it. And so I learned to do it myself. And there were times when I couldn't do it. And I also sort of looked at my own intelligence that way as something that I could never really claim, and that it was just it was nothing I could ever really decide if I like had it or really was very lacking in that way. And come to find out, like, there's sheer brilliance in the being able to laugh at your own stupidity. And when you get into like knowing and not knowing and realizing how hypocritical thought is and the whole nature of thought, it becomes such an amazing thing to see as it comes up how you like forget and trick yourself, and then you see through it, and it feels like the most wonderful, hilarious thing when you really see through it. So I had this situation come up, and it was like a minor situation, and it's this woman who, like, her personality and everything is so opposite mine, and she's someone that I have to deal with professionally, like every year I have to meet with her. And I had to leave her a message, and I don't really like dealing with her. So I left her a message, and then when I was journaling, like, the thought came up that she hadn't replied to my message, and so I needed this answer to my question, but I also didn't actually want to talk to her. So I realized that I was screwed either way. Like, my negative feeling about her and the situation, but feeling like I needed something from her, the ultimate setup, was creating the situation where I felt like I was just screwed either way. There was no way I could possibly win. And right before that, I was looking at this journal entry that I wrote months ago, and I was feeling awful. And so in parentheses, I put like my spiritual, like I would vent out what I was saying. And then in parentheses, I'd put my italicized font and my spiritual, like why that isn't right or why I shouldn't be thinking that. And so I'd like kind of like gone through that and revisited that whole journaling session and why it felt so amazing, because it was one of the most spectacular journal entries I ever wrote. That the start of it, I was feeling horrible, and at the end I was feeling just amazing because it was like writing that out and seeing that how that was conflicting so much, how my thoughts were conflicting, I was beating myself up, was so helpful. And so I realized with this situation with this woman, which I was kind of seeing this whole situation in kind of like this humorous, curious, amusing light. And so when I realized I was screwed either way, in parentheses, I wrote unconditionally loved. And it just hit me how like that's like step 2. Like we realize that there's no real like right choice that we can make, that we can't actually know what choice is the right choice. So when you realize, and it's kind of like in this negative tone, that there really is no right choice, that's when you can kind of feel, and it's like, to explain it out, it seems like a big jump, but it just hit me that that's like the unconditional love. So I created this situation where I had this like, it seemed like I couldn't win. It seemed like I had this resistance to it, but I'd like created that, just like we create the concept of like normal and exceptional and rare and common, and try to be one or the other, but we don't want to be weird, but we want to be, and we cannot win. And so once you realize that you cannot win, you cannot lose. You are unconditionally loved. So I'm just now realizing or remembering my original intentions for this video, so I can laugh about how stupid I am that it took this long to get around to it and actually remember what I was going to, or what I was planning to talk about. But what keeps astounding me lately, and what I keep kind of laughing about, is how in thought, or always, I believed that happiness was found in situations and things and circumstances and people, and so I was separate from it, and it was found in a thing, and I was a thing, but I wasn't a thing, and that was a whole bunch of confusion, but I was trying to figure it out and couldn't just let it go and realize that I didn't know. And so when I came across, I think it was like a Rupert Spira book that I read that in, and it hit me, and I had realized that that was the answer to what I was questioning about. And so I realized as things start to feel kind of off or bad, or I have thoughts that feel bad, and it's funny because there's as you're letting go of thought, there's also a lot of like really stepping back and examining things, and instead of just like running on autopilot, you're examining things. And in a way, it's like taking a day to optimize your computer programs and like clear a whole bunch of clutter off your computer and learn, like, see if there's updates for a bunch of programs you're using. If you're doing work on a computer, you appreciate like how important it is to stop and optimize things. And in a way, it's like we're doing that. But so sometimes it actually takes effort, and yet it's actually results in a letting go of all this unnecessary effort. So, like, as thoughts start to come up, I start to see this pattern where I think that my happiness is a result of the season or the activity or whatever else. And the reason that we can make this misunderstanding really is a result of how absolutely loved we are. That it seems as if we can find pleasure in things. It seems as if we want to have this experience and where everything's kind of like heightened by our creativity, and like the experience of eating chocolate seems pleasurable and seems to bring all these good feelings, and yet at the same time, this is how addictions are created. Like, I love this thing, but I hate this thing. And so we bring in all these, like when we think it's an object, and when we're in thinking, we're sort of like in that matrix of thought, then we bring in duality. And so what we love, we also must hate. And when we actually let in love and are able to just let go of the thought and realize the connection with, oh, when I get something good, I drop thoughts that say, I'm not feeling good, something, I don't have what I want right now. And so we equate it to the thing rather than equating it to the lack of any thoughts that say, what I want isn't present right now. This whole subject seemed to be the theme of the day yesterday. And I was talking to my dad about it when I was over to my parents' house. And they have some new neighbors, and for whatever reason, they would just start blasting part of a song, and then the music would stop, and then it would blast again. And they blasted the song Love Hurts. So I looked that up this morning, and it's a really good song. But, like, the misunderstanding in it, is like it's an example, it's a very funny effect of this. And if you look at the lyrics of the song, there's the line, I know a thing or two. And when you equate that with non-duality, like I know a thing or two, it's really very funny. And so when we try to secure love, we run into a whole bunch of problems. And when we try it, we think that we love another person and that might be something that we could lose, and so it has to be secured. Then we invite in a whole bunch of hurt. But why would we be able to hurt? Why would love hurt? We love feeling love. So when we don't feel love, obviously it hurts. And that's where it's another stunning revelation. It's so simple, like how reality could be so good that it's so simple, that when something feels bad to us, the thought isn't aligned with love. It isn't true. The best way I can explain this connection with feeling or with love or with source, or how you are one and two at the same time, or neither of those, you're not two, is the best way to explain it. But was my initial realization of non-duality was when I looked at a tree, and it was one tree that split into two trees. And me and my son were there recently, and he was talking about the subject, and so I showed him the tree, and it was just like the perfect time to explain it to him. And I asked him, is that one or two? And he's like, it's both at the same time. So we always have this, like, we always are that connection. It's like the absolute best of both worlds. It's having your cake and eating it too. That you can, like, within, find love from and with another person. You can focus your love that way, or for a thing, or for a bird, or for a specific place, or a book, or whatever else. And at the same time, that's you. You are the creator of it. You are doing it. You are it. It's always reflected back at you. In fact, it does not have to go anywhere. I just cannot get over how lucky I am. And I realize that's all, like, going within the story to realize, like, look back and see how all these realizations came about. And that it's essentially more than that, realizing, like, how I am the creator of luck. So it's beyond being lucky or unlucky. It's the author of the story. It's the creator of it. And, like, thinking of Titanic, one of the famous lines is when Cal says, "I make my own luck." And he's the devil for making his own luck. Well, you sort of are that, and yet at the same time, like, the moral of the Titanic is that you can't, like, force things into being. You can't secure things that way, because they already are. And so there's the whole, like, transcendence and love and people connecting with their true inspiration, like, when the ship is going down. Like, we're screwed either way. I think people sort of, like, fantasize about that. Like, if the world was ending, what would you say to the people that you really love, or what would you stop holding back? Well, I said in another video, the world is already... When did it begin? We think that the world was here before us. But in our experience, we have the sense of being, and then there's the world later on. As you think back as babies, or you think back as you're waking in the morning, that you're the creator of it. Neither came before the other. There's no you without the world. There's no world without you. They're simultaneous. So when we try to change the world, it's easier than we think it is. It's changing the way that we look at things. It's really stunning. It's humbling, and it's neither humbling or empowering. Again, you're the creator of it, which is the most fascinating thing and the most boring thing at the same time. All right. I keep, like, creating a bunch of opposites and paradoxes to explain this, but have fun with it. There is nothing more fun than this. And some parts of it seem really, like, boring or mundane to go into. But again, you create that, and anything that really grabs your interest is only made more interesting by its relation to something boring. So when we learn more about the world, we start to appreciate and recognize things more about the world. Like, I read the book Moby Dick, and the only reason I could read it was because it was on my phone, so I could look up the definitions of the words. So the more that I was able to understand, the more I could put into place and understand what was going on. And yet... that required me, like, realizing that I didn't know what the word meant to look up what the word means. So some parts of making this interesting, or seeing just how fascinating and interesting and inspiring it is, takes going into something that at first seems boring, but of course all of this resolves in the end. All of it like feeds back into making it uh as fascinating as it really is. And so it's up to you, like what you want to create and why. So a lot of the times people get lost in these perspectives that's like life is meaningless, and then there's a connotation of meaningless, and then it's as if something is lost. But if it's meaningless, it's like the Mad Hatter in that Alice in Wonderland. It doesn't mean anything, and yet there's this sort of like mystery and hilarity and childlike foolishness that's so fun and at the same time. So the word meaningless, we're screwed either way. Unconditional love, like it's whatever you want it to be. And what we really want is love, and at the same time the expression of it in so many free and creative ways.